Hello, good morning, everybody. Thank you for your patience as we get a little bit of a late start. But we're so glad you're all here today for this extremely important topic called living, dying, and leaving a legacy. We'll start with some introductions and then we'll get right into it because there's a lot of good content to cover. So I'm Jan Brito and my business partner, Laura Quigley, and our assistant, Jesse Belcher, over here managing the slides. We are Capital Senior Solutions. While we are residential realtors who specialize in working with older adults making late in life move decisions, the primary goal of Capital Senior Solutions is to provide education and advocacy for seniors. So we're not here to sell you on our real estate services, but if you should need it, you know where we are. I'll go ahead and have the panelists introduce themselves, and then I have a few more remarks and we'll get started. We'll start with Megan Campbell.
Hi, everyone. My name is Megan Campbell. I am an estate planning and elder law attorney. I specialize in wills and trusts and planning and really helping families pass on their full legacy to their families and their children.
Hi, I'm Kim Natovitz, and I'm an insurance advisor. And the last 25 years, I've helped a lot of families planning with long-term care. And that encompasses helping them design long-term care insurance policies, but also making introductions, as I always say, to the people that you never knew you needed, but now you can't live without. And that includes, elder law attorneys, care managers, home health care agencies, and so on from there.
Hello, I'm Maria Kaplan. I'm a nurse liaison. I'm a clinical liaison for JSSA Hospice. I'm working as a nurse 15 years, and I'm 10 years a hospice nurse liaison, doing a lot of education in the community, as well as I do some clinical work, meeting the patients in the hospitals and facilities and help them to do some planning for the future steps, them and their families. So I'm here to answer your questions about hospice and give you some information.
Thank you very much. So just a few more comments to set the stage for this. An author I follow, whose name is David Soley, wrote about 2 tasks that it seems people are faced with as they get older. They are maintaining control of their lives and leaving a legacy as time grows shorter. So we and our panelists want you to have the answers you need in order to fully live your life and stay in control of your life and your decisions. It's our hope that you can continue to live a life of meaning and that when you go on your terms to the best of your ability. So we're going to address a few myths about different areas of late in life planning in all the areas that the panelists represent. And I'm going to turn it over to Laura now to start going through some of those myths, and then we'll get the truths from our panelists. So thank you all for being here.
So, what is a legacy? Oftentimes people think of a legacy as it's just financial, right? But that's not what it is. It's not just financial. So your categories could be family, professional, financial, spiritual, or personal. So we're going to walk through some myths. The first myth is, I don't have a legacy to leave. And everyone does leave a legacy, whether it be the friends you made, the family you've left behind. It could be your financial resources. But we all make a mark in life and in this world. So we need to kind of broaden our horizons and think about what our legacy is. So let's start talking about some myths. I like this one because Jan and I are out meeting with clients all the time, and we hear a lot of these myths. So this one is, life insurance will take care of my funeral expenses. Okay, Kim, what do you think about that?
We could spend several hours talking about life insurance. One thing that I would say about life insurance is don't underestimate the need for liquidity when someone passes. So many people think, I don't need life insurance. My kids are out of the house, my mortgage is paid off, and so on from there. But you could have a need for liquidity, and life insurance is, something that is going to provide immediate liquidity without any tax consequences. Life insurance is usually tax-free, paid within 5 to 7 business days, and really has a lot of uses. When we're talking about, funeral expenses, don't underestimate how much it costs just to purchase a cemetery plot or have a service or even cremation or so on from there. So life insurance can be a good source of liquidity to pay for expenses. One more thing about life insurance is we do life insurance reviews all the time where I have to tell people your policy is going to die before you do. So if you have a life insurance policy, life insurance is an asset, and make sure you treat it as an asset, which means that you, first of all, know where it is, know who the owner is, the beneficiary of the policy, what carrier, but also that you review the policy. If it's a term policy, is it going to expire before you want it to? If it's a permanent insurance policy, have you been funding it appropriately? So don't just take your life insurance policy and stick it in the drawer. It definitely needs more attention, again, so that it will be there when you need it.
Oh, I like this one too. My estate will take care of my funeral expenses.
Yes. So without the proper planning in place, your family likely won't have access to your accounts immediately, right? Once you pass, if you think, oh, I've got my bank account, if you don't have the proper either trust planning, proper payable on death beneficiaries, that money might not be accessible right away until you've gotten letters of authority from the courts. So it's not always a place to look for money for funeral expenses. There are things that you can do to ensure that your estate has kind of prepaid funeral plans in place, and we often use that as a way of looking at kind of your full estate and finances going forward. But counting on your estate to pay for your funeral expenses is not your best option.
Can I just say one more thing about your funeral? Don't make it a guessing game. How many people here, if they passed away today, feel confident that their spouse and family would know what they want? And so I see, working with a lot of families, there's a tremendous amount of guilt, not knowing if we're honoring mom and dad's wishes. And then if you have 4 children, you're going to have 4 different opinions about what mom or dad wanted. And if they have a spouse or a partner, then you'll have 8.
That's very true. Everyone will have an opinion. And also, your family may not have the ready financial resources to pay for your funeral. And that's a burden you don't want to put on them.
And really, when you think about your family, you want to set up your estate and your plan so they can focus on the most important thing, which is each other and you. And so having a lot of that laid out ahead of time is really helpful. It's one of the things that we help our clients do. We send you home with documents that you can fill out, and you can have those conversations with your family. So when something happens, they have a guide and they know what they need to do.
Okay, so let's go to another myth. My longevity planning is complete when I've done my will and estate plan.
Yeah, so that really depends on what's in your estate plan. If you have a will, then you have directions on what happens when you pass. But what happens when you're in the hospital? Who can make medical decisions on your behalf? Who can make financial decisions on your behalf? Your estate plan should really include not only a will or a trust, some document to help dispose of your assets after you've passed, but also powers of attorney, both for medical decisions, healthcare decisions, and end-of-life living will decisions. And again, as we've said earlier, having those conversations with your family so they know exactly what you would want and how you would like to have those decisions made.
I think it's also important
to recognize when you appoint someone with this responsibility of being your healthcare agent or your financial power of attorney. You might tell them, I don't expect you to do all of this work on your own. What I want is you to really be the quarterback. So if you're responsible for taking over my finances, paying my bills, getting me ready for taxes, so on from there, you can outsource this to a reliable professional, someone called a daily money manager, as an example. And we work with them all the time, and it's really important to have that discussion. Same thing with regard to a healthcare agent. You've asked somebody to be your healthcare agent, and maybe they have to make decisions when you're being discharged from a hospital and you're going to need care. Well, the role of the discharge planner is to discharge you, and they're only thinking about that first step and getting you out of the hospital and not thinking beyond that. And that's where aging-like professionals are the people that you didn't even know existed, but that you and your family couldn't live without. And they are people who know the landscape of what all the services are and how to keep you independent in your home, or how to know what might be the right facility. And they're extremely important, I think, for everybody to identify, as I always say, before the other orthopedic shoe drops. And really important, no matter who is your healthcare agent, it's good to have a backup, because something could happen. They may not be able to do everything that you anticipated. You may have adult children who don't live in the area, and having children is not an insurance policy that they're going to be able to fulfill that role. So when you name those people in your documents, you really want to flesh out that conversation about, this is what my expectations are, because they need to know where they can get help.
I will add about healthcare POA because I had experience working in ICU in the hospital when people didn't have POA. And according to the Maryland, state of Maryland, spouse is the next of kin, and he or she can make decision for you if you don't have living will. If you don't have spouse, there is children who sometimes there are 4 of them, or 6 of them, and they're not agreeable. And until they get to some decision, it can be weeks, months. But the worst scenario, which I remember for the rest of my life, was the patient who didn't have any family members, and he didn't have living will. And no one distant relatives wanted to take the responsibility, and he already wasn't able to make decision. So the lawyer of the hospital, I was part of the ethics commission, the lawyer of the hospital told, since he does not have decision maker, you have to do everything possible and impossible if you can prolong his life even for 1 month or so. I couldn't describe how many procedures, I don't want to say tortures, some kind of, yes, he passed through until he died in 2 months later. And it was a very traumatic experience for all hospital staff, but you cannot do anything that if there is no one who can make decision for this person.
Enrolling in hospice means giving up on living.
Choosing to enroll in hospice is choosing to focus on quality of life and focused care. So we used to talk about hospice. I love to talk about hospice as a philosophy, not necessarily death sentence for the patient, because we have people who are at the program 1 week and we have people who are in the program 18 months. And graduate, and 10-20% of their patients will graduate because of the extended prognosis. But speaking about giving up hope, The hope could be different. It can be hope to be cured, or it can be hope to stay with your family, to enjoy every moment of the life, to be free of any discomfort, to have time to say I love you and I loved you all my life, and use the good days of the disease, not to spend them in the doctor office or in the hospital or for some tests, unnecessary tests a lot. These things happen a lot. But to have a hope to spend the time with a loved one. And I have, again, like 10 years experience, and I work with different cultures. You probably figure out I wasn't born in America. I lived in 3 other countries, and it's interesting how people of different cultures, those who don't even know what is hospice about and never had it in their country, how much they accept this culture at some point, how much they enjoy to use this time, and how less they grieve it after the death, because they feel that they use those precious time to be together, to finish this circle of relations with a loved one, and having hope to have this time with the family member. So it's just philosophy when you want to stay home, stay comfortable, spend the rest of the life, and the studies show that those people live longer, for a couple months longer, plus minus, than those who continue to go to hospitals and be on machines and go through procedures.
So when I explain hospice to people very often, what I say is the healthcare delivery system is going to come to you. You no longer are going to have to necessarily leave your home to get the respite care, the support, and everything that you need. So let's not focus on the fact that, the negative connotation of hospice care. More, let's think about what can be brought to you at home so that you can be comfortable and you don't have to leave. And when people understand, and sort of if we, reframe it, then I think more people are amenable to hospice. So remember that if you're talking to someone and, it's been suggested that they enter hospice, well, what hospice means is, in my mind, care being rendered at home as opposed to leaving your home. And many more people will agree to it when we reframe it that way.
Okay, so Medicare pays for all senior living options. And we do hear that a lot. Don't worry, I'm on Medicare. It'll take care of when I need to move into the next phase of life.
Medicare pays for skilled care that has a beginning and an end, with the goal of functional, improvement, maybe to the way you were prior to having the acute situation. And Medicare has gotten even trickier in terms of, now they're observation versus being admitted and so on from there. If you need care due to Alzheimer's or dementia, if you haven't been in a hospital for 3 days and gone to a skilled care facility within 30 days, it's a whole chart that you have to go through from there. But Medicare doesn't pay for long-term care. It doesn't pay for the custodial care, the care that you need all day, every day when you need help, going from a sitting to a standing position, being able to get in and out of the shower, on and off the commode, feed yourself, bathe yourself, or if your loved one just needs what I would call to start with, verbal cueing and supervision because of severe cognitive impairment. So Medicare benefits are very limited, and they are not synonymous with
long-term care. Really important to understand that.
All I need to create a will is to write down my wishes on notebook paper and sign it.
This is a big myth, especially in Maryland. So a will that you write by hand is called a holographic will. And in the state of Maryland, it is only valid if you were in the military. So most folks, think, oh, I can just write it down. There are a lot of hoops that have to be, gone through to ensure that it's a valid will and that it can stand up in court. So that it means even if you type up a will, you have to ensure that it is witnessed by at least 2 witnesses. It could still be contested then, and we have to find those witnesses and figure out, have them certify that you were able to make a will, that you did it on your own free will. So similar, right, DIY type wills. Oftentimes I will see folks that have gone on LegalZoom or gotten a free will, and they don't receive all the instructions that they need to execute that will correctly. So you're just as well off as having handwritten a will. And if you don't have a valid will, the state has a plan for you. They will implement their plan, and typically that is to your spouse and then to your children. But not everybody wants that.
I have a question that probably everybody has about a will, and that is, what is the approximate cost to have someone create a will for you?
It really depends on what you have and what your assets are and how you want to spread those assets, where you want to give them and what your particular situation is.
I decided to return the slide. Hospice means living my home, and I encounter this myth very often, almost every day when I'm talking with my patients. And we have to blame British, because when you watch British movies, you see the people who are terminally ill, they pick it and go to the house of hospice to die there in a few months. And it really was created in Great Britain in 1960s in this way, and it's still there. There is a house where you go to die at the end when no one can take care of you, or you're too weak to be cared at home, or it's too much burden for the family. It's not in US. In US, hospice is a program. It's a home program. It's served patients at home. I believe 50-60% of our patients are staying at home. The rest of them staying in assisted living facility, and the good news that assisted living facilities will keep patient in any condition, even end of life, when they're not responsive already, if they are enrolled in hospice program. So assisted living will be able to keep the resident for the rest of the life if this person is on hospice program. We come into the skilled nursing facilities, nursing home, if the patient is on long-term care bed, not rehab. We cannot be on rehab because hospice, the goal of hospice is provide comfort care, and the goal of rehab facility is to get patient better and return him or her to live in the community. So it's paid by Medicare Part A's, all of them, all those programs, hospice and home health and rehab. That's why you cannot be at the same time in rehab, getting stronger, and be on a hospice, be comfortable. So it's one or another decision. So yes, in the US, we do have houses, hospice house, we call it inpatient hospice. In America, you can get to this house only if someone in a horrible condition, like pain-wise, or shortness of breath, or agitation. So something horrible goes on, some crisis goes on with a terminal ill patient, and we don't have kind of time, and we don't want to make patient suffer trying to put his or her symptoms under control at home. So we take in this kind of person to inpatient hospice in the house, and in 2-3 days, we have to discharge him or her because we have to find solution to manage the pain at home, for example. And this is very short-term solution. And to be honest, 99.99% of hospice patients in America never will get to this kind of house, because hopefully hospice agency will be able to keep their symptoms under control at home. And we can go as far as to put PCA control pain pump at home and manage it. So, and patient doesn't have to go to the facility, hospice facility.
No, thank you for clarifying. Appreciate that. So let's jump into the hospice is expensive. My family can't afford it.
Will be short answer. So, but hospice is free. It's a for those who have Medicare. Medicare benefit, 100% covered. Hospice covered by 100% by Medicare, 400% by Medicare. Those who don't have Medicare, God forbid, sometimes we do have young patients who didn't get so old to get Medicare. So they usually have private insurances. And most of those insurance cover hospice also for 100%. We check in insurance first before we take in someone on a service, because they have to know what kind of expenses they probably will have. Sometimes hospice covered 90%, but usually if deductible met, and usually with the very sick people, deductible met by the end of the year. So, but if person does not have funds and does not have insurance, most of the times it's a charity case, and we take a patient on charity case.
Okay, this comes back to insurance. My long-term health care insurance will cover all of my future medical and the living expenses.
Long-term care insurance will pay for care in your home or in a facility that is custodial in nature when you need assistance with 2 out of 6 activities of daily living, or you have severe cognitive impairment, and on average when it's going to last more than 90 days. Now, long-term care insurance policies are either life insurance policies with long-term care riders, or they are a standalone supplemental health insurance policy. Unlike your traditional health insurance policies or Medicare supplements, where if we chose Medicare Plan F as an example, we all would have the same benefits, long-term care insurance policies can be designed based upon what your individual financial goals are. So most of us will look at the assets, the income we have available, and we will make some educated guesses, because we don't know if we're going to need long-term care or how long we're going to need long-term care. I always say this is the one time in your life you want to plan on being average, not extraordinary. And, we look at what the cost of care looks like, where you're living today, where you're going to live in the future, and how much of this you might be able to pay out of pocket. And then determine, again, it's a little bit more of an art than a science, how much would you want an insurance company to pay for so that you and your family can remain, financially secure. So since long-term care insurance covers custodial care, it's not a substitute for Medicare supplements, post-retirement health insurance. They actually do not offset one another. You can be, as an example, if you're in a nursing home, your nursing home can be charging Medicare for the skilled care that you need, and also being reimbursed by your long-term care insurance policy. So if you're at home care paid for by a long-term care insurance policy is going to pay for a person that's going to provide assistance with activities of daily living, or because someone has, substantial cognitive impairment. And, I'm by no basis the expert on what home health care agencies will and won't do, but I can tell you that my clients who have had long-term care, typically that aid has helped their patient go from a sitting to a standing position, get up in the morning, help them to get clothes on, clothes off, to shower, to bathe, to get on and off the commode, to help them with personal grooming. Often they will, make their bed, do their laundry, prepare, meals for them, accompany them to a doctor's appointment and things of that nature. And that's what long-term care will pay for at home. If you're in a facility, long-term care is essentially going to pay for, your room and board in the facility, meaning the place where you're staying, the cost of meals, what might be included, laundry, things of that nature. And then it's going to pay for the care that you need, which often can change over time. So if someone needs to come to your room, give you medications, someone needs to come to your room, bathe you, someone from there, there'll be additional charges for those additional expenses. And if you're in a memory care unit, as an example, where there are, staffing ratios are different, again, the same type of, monthly payment. But long-term care is something that you're going to want or need, not in lieu of your health insurance, Medicare supplements, but in addition to from there.
Thank you for that. And the other thing that we run into often is you have to focus on the word care, because some people think this is going to pay for your living situation, and it's all about care. Okay, Megan, this is going to be for you. We hear this all the time. It's all about power of attorney. Everyone thinks that I have power of attorney, so I'm all set. And this gives my family permission to take care of my funeral arrangements after I've passed.
So this is similar to the first one we talked about. Your power of attorney and your healthcare directives all cease working when you pass away. They are no longer valid. No one can take those actions. So again, if you have a power of attorney and your family is helping you with that, using that power of attorney to manage your finances, when you pass away, they're unable to do that. And that includes everything from funeral expenses to, if you still own your home, paying mortgage and those types of payments until your executor of your state has the court authority to then step in and start getting access to those accounts.
My family knows my wishes and will do what I want after I die.
This is one that you think, right? My family knows everything. They know what I want. And, when you're stuck in grief, you don't know. Or, you think you know, but then there's always that question. I tell clients often that estate planning is the best gift that you can give your family, because you've done the work now to help them make those decisions and guide them. And then afterwards, whether it's healthcare decisions or what to do with your belongings, they're not questioning, did I make the right decision? Is that what mom and dad would have wanted? Is that what I should have done? And so you're really giving them such a gift of having things laid out and not having that second guessing afterwards.
All hospice providers are the same.
Honestly, it's partially a big draw because this is the federal program. Hospice is a federal program covered by Medicare, and every hospice agency has provided the same package. Yes, theoretically the same package of services, which includes equipment at home delivered, some supplies like diapers, gloves, dressing supplies, if people have wounds and stuff. So they have to, it should be the team of the people who will visit the patient at home, which is nurse, social worker, chaplaincy, aides, additional support. So they have to give respite care when the patient is for everyone, every patient, and every hospice has to have option to give respite care, which is 5 days in the nursing home to give family time to have some rest or do some vacation plans. But yeah, from like package of the services should be the same, and they dictated by Medicare regulations, because Medicare pays for this 100%. From another side, agencies are different for sure. There are, and this is true, and there are profit hospices agencies and not-profit hospice agency, and they a little bit different in their will to come to take the patient to the program or discharge the patient from the program when they're not qualified any longer or have extended prognosis. They can have different ratio of nurse to patient. Like I know agency which gives like, let's say, a nurse has 12, 13 patients, which is not a big amount of patients. Let's say it's a very good ratio. Nationwide, it can be 20, 22 patients for one hospice nurse, which makes it virtually impossible to visit them more often than once a week, for example, versus those who have 12 patients or nurse can visit the patient sometimes a few times a week, sometimes every day, depends on the condition of this patient. So there are different volunteers training in different agencies. And to finish this topic, I really recommend to go to just Google Hospice Compare, and you will come to Medicare website where you can put zip code where you live, and they will give you a few agencies which works on this zip code area. And there is reviews and there is like scores which were built according to survey of the patients' families. And by Medicare, I think they updating it every 3 months. So you will see this percent nationwide, this percent JSSA Hospice does, and people were satisfied, this percent Montgomery Hospice, Seasons, and etc. And you, like with a hotel review, you always can choose what really works for you best.
I like that advice, just like a hotel. Just do your, that's everything in life, right? We should do our research. And it's nice to know that there's a good website to go to where you can, get that data that you need. Dying is free and easy. People fantasize they will die in their sleep and everything will take care of itself.
So in last century, 1900, Americans lived 46 years. Women lived 48. Americans, men lived 46, women 48. Now we're almost 79, and actually we are not very good because Japanese live 89 now. So, and I think it's great that we live twice longer than we used to, but it's bringing the difficult consequences, which means that people can be sick for many, many, many years and slowly declining over the years and require more and more financial support and more help and care and more suffering, let's be honest. So decisions to make are very difficult because you have to choose between sometimes comfort, between sometimes not comfort, not necessarily hospice. Do I need this procedure? Do I need this test? What I will do if this test will show this or that? And honestly, my favorite story, and I will bring some life story. So I was doing an information session with a 95 years old guy with a very bad dementia. He didn't talk, he didn't eat already, and I was doing it not with him, with his family. And they told me, tomorrow we're going to do EEG of his brain, which kind of some procedure, those who don't know, that's kind of registered the electrical impulse of the brain all around. So to do this, they had to do ambulance. They came from the facility, from the nursing home, take him to the wherever institute does this procedure and return him back. And I could not question doctor order because I'm a nurse. I don't feel comfortable to do this. I answered very politely. I don't know what would be the plan. I asked, but probably doctor doesn't know. And what you're gonna do with the results of this test? Because what you're gonna find, like this is I thought on the back of my mind, what you're gonna find on the 95 years old gentleman with the end-stage dementia EEG, if this part of brain does not have great electrical signal versus this one part of brain, what is the next plan? What is the next step? Why you want to take him out of his comfortable environment by ambulance and do this? And very nice educated family, they didn't even think about this. They were so shocked by this very simple question. They like, doctor ordered, and they were about to do it. Why not? So this is the thing that when I meet in the families, and not necessarily all of them sign for hospice right away, but I think I can give myself credit that at least I encourage them to think about what we're going to do with the results of these unnecessary tests and procedures. Next time I met the same family, they didn't sign hospice this day. I met them next week after, and at least they canceled the test.
So sometimes tongue-in-cheek, people ask me, what I do. And I say, well, I make sure if you need long-term care, you don't take your family down with you. And when you don't do any planning, that's really what you do. Because all of your needs will be met. Your family will make sure of that. But it's like the game of dominoes where, as they say, one mother can take care of 10 children, but it takes 10 children to take care of one mother. That's what happens in families. And everybody else's life is disrupted and they suffer because you haven't done any planning. And when I say they suffer, their marriage suffers, they don't take care of their children, they suffer financially, both in the short term and in the long term. They haven't accumulated for retirement. I know people who they didn't work taking care of another family member. It impacted their Social Security, as an example. So you really need to talk about all of this. And I always joke and say, I know people who've spent far more time planning a trip to Disney than they've done, planning for what could happen and really having a dress rehearsal. So just when you think about this planning, we all want a rose garden exit, so to speak, but we don't all get it. And when we don't, the impact on other people is far greater than the impact on us personally. And that's why you really have to do planning, not for yourself per se, but for the people you love and that care about you.
So the question is, can you describe the difference, or how do they complement each other, hospice and palliative care?
Thank you. It's a very open question. Palliative care is like, imagine it's a huge umbrella, and hospice is just part of this. So, for example, it could be like person with excruciating pain of arthritis and will be on palliative care for pain for many, many years. It does not mean that he or she has some terminal disease, which will have, and they have like 6 months prognosis or less. To get to the hospice care, a person should be eligible. And actually, it's a huge different topic of eligibility for hospice, and it's done by nurses like I am, coming to the patient's home or hospitals, review all records, and see if there is some terminal disease there. It's not necessarily cancer. Cancer is just 17% of our patients. it's dementia, it's all other things. So back to the question, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit. So to be in a hospice, person should be eligible in terms again of like terminal diagnosis, decline, and stage of this disease, which means, for example, for dementia, people not verbal, people not eating any longer. For cancer, it can be very advanced cancer and no treatment is recommended. Heart disease, it could be a lot of oxygen, a lot of visits to the hospital with the same heart disease. For palliative care, you should have just discomfort. But I would say that it's not very good covered. It's paid by Medicare palliative care, but it's very difficult to find palliative care specialists in the area. Hospice is much easier to find, let's be honest. So there is some clinic, I think Holy Cross Hospital does. There are a couple practitioners whom I know, some of them nurse practitioners visited home, who has like palliative care specialties, but they're pretty professional about this, but it's not very often. And it's not like spread much.
So the question was, what is the average age that some should be thinking about getting long-term care insurance?
So that's a great question. And it's long-term care insurance comes in many different forms. So as an example, when you are working and you have a disability insurance policy, there can be a rider that says if I simultaneously can't work and need to pay for long-term care services, I can collect two benefits at once. And that has happened. I had a 42-year-old client who had a stroke and he was not able to work and he needed home health care. And so he was receiving income replacement and money to pay for his home care. You can also have a life insurance policy that has a long-term care rider. That can be on a term insurance policy. It can be on a permanent insurance policy as well. And then so if you are looking at life insurance, you could possibly at any age look at having a rider like that on a policy. And then there are what I would call permanent long-term care insurance contracts, meaning I'm going to have this particular benefit for my entire life. So to your point, if you wait until you are 70, chances are your health has changed and you may not be able to qualify for long-term care insurance policies from there. So I see most people beginning to investigate long-term care insurance typically when they are in their 50s, with the exception of if somebody has a parent or family member who needs long-term care today, we may start to look at it earlier. So I have several clients who they have a mother who has had early onset dementia. Well, insurance companies are now underwriting for family medical history. And if both your mother and your father have Alzheimer's or dementia, there are some carriers that won't underwrite you for policy. So depending upon family medical history, we may look at obtaining the coverage sooner rather than later. Or the other reason why some people might obtain this coverage sooner rather than later is they want to fully fund the premiums prior to retirement. For some people, it's easier to figure out what they can spend during retirement if they have as few financial obligations as possible. Or if you are self-employed and you can deduct some of the long-term care insurance premiums against earned income. Again, you may want to take advantage of the ability to do that and perhaps obtain long-term care insurance a little bit sooner rather than later for that reason. So the answer is it depends. There are many types of long-term care protection, and you may be able to, couple it with another insurance product prior to thinking about something that you're going to have forever.
I have a question for Megan. Other than a power of attorney and a will, are there any other end-of-life documents we should be thinking about?
And I want to add on to that because I have a question for you too. This has been a great debate in my home recently with my millennials. When should you get a will? And how often should you update it?
Start with the first question. Typically, an estate plan, right, should include a will or a revocable living trust, however you're going to dispose of your assets after death. And then you need a power of attorney for financial and legal decisions. So that is someone who can step into your shoes and make all of those financial, decisions day to day, anything that's not healthcare related. You also should have a healthcare power of attorney, so someone who can step in and make healthcare decisions for you. And then a living will. So what are your decisions and how would you like your end of life care to be? As we talked about earlier, for the powers of attorney, you really should have at least 3 people named. You want a primary person, a backup, and then I often advise folks to think of that third person that would really, especially have healthcare decisions, make those decisions for you. Someone that might be removed emotionally from the decisions and would make the decisions that you really want. And then there are nice to have documents within an estate plan. I like to have clients do things like talk about your long-term care. How would you like to be cared for if you were in a care facility, and provide kind of those directions for your family members so they know. I have a client who told me the other day, I just want blankets. I just want to be warm and have blankets on. And so we documented that, right? So that way her family knows, her caregivers know, and she's able to be cared for in the way that she wants to be. And then we talked about memorial services and how would you like your memorial to be held. And then, first question. So everyone over the age of 18 needs a minimum powers of attorney and healthcare directives. And the state has defaults, right? Your spouse, your children, but oftentimes, right, there are hospitals that won't take in those defaults, right? Your parents, you're 18, your children are over 18, you can't talk to doctors on their behalf anymore because you don't have that authorization. So everyone over 18 should have powers of attorney and healthcare documents. Wills is a little tricky depending on what they own, right? The default would be to your parents. Once you're married, you definitely need a will because the default is not to your spouse. I talk to a lot of young people that say, oh, I don't need it if my spouse will get everything. And that's not the case. It really depends on how long you've been married, whether you have kids, whether your parents are living. So ultimately, you want control over your decisions. You need a estate plan.
How often should a will be updated, or does it need to be at all?
So it should be looked at every 3 years. One of the things, as things happen. And life happens, and so your estate plan should change with your life. And oftentimes, because life happens and it gets busy, you don't think about it, right? You put it in a drawer and you go, okay, it's there. And so having someone, setting a reminder, having someone remind you, we check in with clients every 3 years just to say, hey, have these things in your life changed? Do we need to take another look? And along the same lines, letting people know where your plans are, right? And where your documents are, because you don't want them searching for, where's my will, or where's that healthcare power of attorney when I need it? If they don't know, it's just like not having one.
I have a question about life insurance. So, like, when you're working, you have life insurance, usually a job. And when you retired, this insurance, like, gone. So you have to have your private life insurance, like, from the early ages, probably, like, personal.
Exactly. So employer-sponsored life insurance plans typically are part of a suite of benefits And usually when you leave that employer at retirement, there isn't the ability to continue it. Or if it is, it's often very expensive because you're buying a new policy at that age when you're leaving. So you really need to start thinking about life insurance and what you're going to need, at the beginning of your career. And many people will need a lot of term insurance for a number of years. And then as their financial obligations to children, family members have diminished, you may need less insurance. And that's when you may want to have something called permanent insurance that you're going to have for your entire life. And you could even, as we talked about, finish paying the premiums prior to retirement so that you don't have that expense when you retire.
Thank you.
So I want to thank this very accomplished panel of women for being with us here today and sharing their knowledge. I hope you all found it useful. We could probably talk for a couple more hours on the topic, but I know you all have things to do. So just want to mention that our next seminar is November 16th, right back here in Lakewood, and it's called Communicating with Adult Children. And we have another excellent panel presenting at that seminar as well. And we will have a recording of this up on our website at capitalseniorsolutions.com if you'd like to rewatch it or share it with your friends or family. So thank you again very much for coming. Have a wonderful day.